भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaskar, my dear friends. This is video number 7 on human brain. This video starts with brainwashing, usurpation of the freedom of life. It is quite natural for the conscious and intelligent beings to make use of materialist resources and means. Such attempts are justified if this use does not perturb the social harmony and ecosystem. Excess of consumption and luxuries are harmful for both the balance of the cycle of nature and the evolution of consciousness. Obsessed possession of luxuries and excessive dependence on materialistic means leads to the dominance of the latter over the individual's consciousness. This is like a horse riding on his master or the boats crossing the rivers with the support of the heads of the passengers. Except for peculiar instances of emergency or magical demonstrations, such a phenomena would be only indicative of disastrous disorder. Dominance of matter over consciousness in whatever form would result in serious consequences and disgrace. When the attraction of materialistic comforts allures the human mind and overcomes its conscious faculties, the latter lose their freedom in a state of disguise. This is why the knowledge seers have criticized greed and attachments. The materialistic help is fine till it is used only for essential purposes and bare needs of healthy sustentation. The righteous way of life consists, among other things, of earning one's own living by honest and industrious efforts, making use of material gains to meet the basic need of one's own life, and channelizing the rest of these resources for the altruist objectives. Avarice and possessive attitude engage one's life in excessive collection of comforts and luxuries and thus obstruct the ideals of humanity. These tendencies are therefore described as the roots of sins. Attachment with gains makes one possessive and selfish. Greed for such gains blocks the reasoning and debogs one's life in general. Because a greatly fellow wants to have more and more by all possible means, even if they are dishonest and antisocial. Such tendencies are obnoxious for the individual and the society both. They also give rise to mutual distrust, jealousy, and strife and malign the environment of life. Excessive affection and involvement with living beings also falls in the category of worldly attachments and is regarded as an obstacle in free development of life. Cooperating and friendly relationship among the people are necessary for the existence of social system. However, if someone's feelings of love and care remain confined to only a few near and dear ones, they would prove to be nothing better than materialistic attachment. Moreover, if such a thraldom of sentiments is strong and persists for long. One might even forget his duties as a civilian and as a responsible member of the human society. Narrow mindedness and selfish and possessive attitude come as a natural consequences. Driven by his attachment with a particular group of individuals, a capable person tends to give extra importance to the interest of the latter and tries to collect more and more wealth and comforts for them. In this process, he narrows down his attitude and also tends to ignore the norms of fair earnings. Those who receive his over attention and affection also suffer in the same way because the unnecessary comforts earned without work and the pseudo aplomb makes them exceedic, egotist, and extravagant in general. Such persons, especially the adolescents, often get addicted to wretched habits and sensual pleasures. Thus, the gifts of excessive affection become the curse of their lives. The thraldom of attachments is therefore considered as a major obstacle in the elevation and progress of human life. Feelings of sacred love and revered devotion of high ideals are described as virtues of human life, as these sentiments are rooted deeply in the inner core of consciousness. They inspire compassion and feelings of oneness with every living being. Pure love originates in one's heart, emotional center, because of the in internal respect for others' propriety and serene sentiments and the feelings of caring and sharing. These feelings give rise to friendship and intimacy on account of compatibility of thoughts and deeds. A true lover always wants to become more virtuous in the eyes of the beloved ones and also cares for the elevation of the latter's personality too. True love inspires sharing and sacrificing instead of selfishness and possession. The above discussion is not included here in the context of social ethics. Rather, it is aimed to emphasize the superiority of consciousness. The physical body and the entire material existence are therefore being actively used by the manifestation of consciousness. However, when the comforts and luxuries of the body, the sensual pleasures and materialistic possessions become so important that all activities of life get confined to them, then the individual's mind also gets trapped into their bonds. This vicious cycle diverts the individual soul from its original divine path. The attraction and joy of materialistic possession proves to be a disastrous bargain as it costs the freedom of individual consciousness. The expression of bliss and internal satisfaction disappears from the life of a person whose inner self is enslaved under the thraldom of avarice, ego, and attachment. The material power of the world begins to dominate the original superiority of the Chetan in such a person. The latter's life moves within the peripheries of sorrow, dissatisfaction, fear, jealousy, uncertainty, and instability. It is important for the aspirants of awakening the internal power of brain that they prevent themselves from the attractions of selfish joys and possessions and rather practice stability of emotions and concentration of thoughts in the domains of righteous intellect and pure instinct of the inner self. The original power of the soul should be kept alive to be brighten the glow of intellect so that the latter could sharply discriminate between the ideal and the avoidable thoughts and emotions and acquire foresightedness and discerning wisdom. One who is not affected by the worldly possessions, whose mind is not pulled by the worldly and sensual desires, enjoys the freedom of the Chetan. His soul is liberated in true sense. The ascetic disciplines of morality and altruist service in his life are self-imposed as per the inspirations of his enlightened inner self. It is like a curse on the dignity of humanity that almost the entire human race in the modern times is living as a slave under the attractions and attachments of worldly means and luxuries accepted for a few great personalities. The winners of life, a vast majority of people live a dormant life without using any of the original powers of their brains. The craze for fame and wealth is a new addition, a gift of modern social trends in the series of adversities created by the human society for its own decline and fall. Excess of comforts and material based potentials provided by science and technology have fueled the devastating fire of consumerization. The situation has now reached an alarming state. If this danger is allowed to persist and grow, the immense power of consciousness would vanish from human life one day. Independent thinking and creativity would lose its existence under the dominance of unchecked materialist developments. Every aspect of human life would then become artificial and exist as a parasite or slave of the scientific and technological giants. If the attempts on developing scientific devices and methods to completely control the human mind reach success without realizing the deeper levels of consciousness in it, there will be a risk of letting masses be hypnotized permanently and survive like instruments functioning under the control of high tech products. One's original thinking, aspirations, natural tendencies, convictions, idealism, faith, and emotions would then have no roles to play in his life. One would think, feel, and perform what a machine or chemical reaction would force it to do. This way, a few scientists and technocrats would make use of others like puppets. Experiments on animal brains have been successful in bringing long-term and even permanent change in some cases. While Dr. James Oldus was able to partially control some rats by removing the natural fear of cats from their minds, Dr. D. Albert had gone a step ahead. He had been able to produce a new class of rats in his lab. These brainwashed rats were physically the same as the other members of their race but were remarkably different in all their tendencies and activities. Dr. Robert Thompson's experiments on controlling a tiny sea animal by random signals add to this series. Ongoing research on external stimulation and control of the brain has so far been successful in awakening some parts of long-term memory. Dr. Carl Leslie has studied what intensity and types of electrical charges should be applied on what portion of the brain in order to awaken the memories of specific time periods of distant past. Dr. Welder Penfield's experimental studies, as discussed earlier, are significant in this regard. Professor Delgado of France has demonstrated how electrical signals could be used to temporarily remove the impressions of inherited habits. He believes that the future developments of this kind would be used in eliminating loose habits and evil tendencies so easily as the acne and boils are removed by the minor surgeries. The experiments of Dr. Roger Sperry of the California Institute of Technology and Dr. Holder Haddon of Sweden all add to the success of attempts of temporary brainwashing by electrical and chemical means. Notably, all these scientists have also cautioned that such techniques should be used only to treat the diseased state of mind, brain. Neurological research has now provided substantial knowledge of the external structure, anatomy, and functioning of the brain. There was a time when the nerves and marrow cells, fat cells of brain were considered to be the basic units of mental functions. It was believed that one who has bigger and heavier brain would also be more intelligent. Because of this belief, the diets, tonics, and medicines for mental health were also prescribed so as to increase the fat and strengthen the physique of this particular organ. Things are obviously quite different now. It is now clearly examined that the bioelectrical currents in the neuronal network play the principal role in the information processing and thought propagation through the brain. Multifaceted research in neuroscience has shown that the size and weight of the brain do not have a direct relation with the power and creativity of the brain. The brain of a whale weighs about 7,000 gms. That of an elephant has an average weight of 5,200 gms. The brain of a dolphin is about 1,800 gms, of a horse about 650 gms. A rhinoceros, a rhinoceros 600 gms, gorilla 500 gms, dog 180 gms, and cat 30 gms. But this order of scale cannot be used to compare their mental potentials. The human brain weighs around 1350 gms in an average adult. However, this does not have any relation with the wisdom, mental capability, or maturity of a person. Human intelligence has evolved significantly since several thousand years, but there has not been any noticeable change in its size or weight. If there were any such possibility, the brains of the intellectually advanced person of the present times would have become the bulkiest organ in their bodies. Sublimity, activity, and connectivity of the neurons in one's brain are found to be directly associated with the development of mental potentials. The tinier the neurons, the greater the likelihood of finer responses of the brain. Our brain has a galaxy of over 10 to the power 10 neurons, which could be classified into enormous types according to their functional varieties. The intellectual potential of a human brain is found to depend on the number of neurons and the strength of their active connections with each other. The nuclei the nucleic acid of the nerve cells works like a chemical battery to generate different types of electrical impulses, excitations, and currents. It also controls the bioelectrical flows across the neuronal network. Neurochemists are engaged in experimenting to increase the production of this acid. A combination of magnesium and penicillin is found to be useful for this purpose. Some scientists at Kansas have also worked on specific protein atoms for its synthesis. Different neurons in the brain get linked to each other in a small fraction of a millisecond with the help of the bioelectrical currents flowing through them in an excited state. The type and strength of this flow depends upon the specific signals of perception sent from a sense organ or the mental or emotional impulse of the inner self. The electrical activity allows almost instantaneous retrieval of memory and or extraction and processing of biochemical information in the brain. The harmonious and systematic processing efficiency, alac- alacrity, and sensitivity of these bioelectrical activities in the brain account for the talents and intelligence of a person. If the bioelectrical flow in one's brain were slow and irregular, then he would become unsystematic, forgetful, and dull in general. Elucidating the functions of reticular formation and connections between the brain and spinal column and harmonizing its activities can help controlling the mental and emotional excitations. The feelings of cheerfulness, sorrow, and enthusiasm, etc., can then be induced even in the absence of an external cause or circumstances which prevail during their natural occurrence. Electrical charges, radioactive radiation, and chemicals affect the physical and mental activities because they influence the activities of the specific functional centers and hence the bioelectrical flows in the brain. The effect of intoxication is a well-known example of the chemical reactions of this sort. A variety of chemical compounds have now been identified which can temporarily trigger mental excitations and feelings of specific kinds. Professor Anokhov of Russia had investigated the formula of preparation of aminozyme. The molecules of this chemical bind with some pain sensing sites of the reticular formation and inhibit the feelings of pain by preventing the secretion of certain hormones. Owing to this effect, a patient treated by this drug does not feel pain in any part of his body. Even if there is a wound in the body, its presence would not be felt by a person if he is under the effect aminozyme. No anesthetic condition or forced sleep is required to suppress the pain in this case. This is a medicine of adrenal group. With the help of such a medicine, one would not feel any pains even if one were in the painful state of delivering a baby or suffering from stomach headache and sciatica and sciatica, etc. Surgical operations also become virtually painless for the patients treated by the medicines of the adrenal group. Modern medical technology has advanced significantly in many areas including plastic surgery, organ transplants, radiotherapy, etc. Simultaneous research on brain and psychosomatic diseases has also gained momentum in the recent times. Efforts are also on in some laboratories to investigate techniques of controlling the mind in a desired manner. Research on brain control is welcome so long as it aims at regulating the deficient functioning of the brain and the nervous system with the help of medication and external devices. However, over-ambitious and unchecked development in this area of research would be risky. As stated earlier, such a progress might be misused by a few experts and might prevent the creativity and other natural potentials of brain and destroy the independence of mind. Present era has witnessed the worst misuse of religion, philosophy, art, literature, audiovisual tools, press, radio, television, and other modes of influencing the public mind. Technological developments have been by and large misused in the efforts of creating false impressions and virtually mesmerizing the masses in favor of specific cults, political parties, products of particular groups of companies, etc. Independent thinking of the common man has already been captured in such illusions. Attempts of brainwashing or orienting the minds of people by altering or controlling the functions of their brains would cause irreparable damage to the normal progress of human society. Such attempts ought to be restricted well in advance in order to prevent the extinctive consequences. It should be again noted that the natural potentials of human brain, if allowed grow freely and saved from wastage and misuse, could bring a glorious future of human dignity. I conclude this video at this point. Next video number 8 will start with the topic the amazing chemistry of the human brain. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, comment and share the video and subscribe the channel. Namaskar my dear friends.